The idea is to surround ourselves with people who see our value, and the first person in line needs to be our man. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Motu Como. Today, I'm in a hospital, so we're going to be hearing the ambulance. Visiting my mom, unfortunately, who's not feeling well. Anyway, every time I get a little chance, I'll try to chat with you. My name is Maud Toussaint Como, and this is a Maud thing. Today I wanted to talk about some reflections I have on when your partner or your spouse, or when he does not support you. And I want to talk about he as opposed to she, just because, at least from a sociobiological sort of norms, there tend to be certain egoistic traits that tend to be assigned to the he. Not that it is absent in the she, but what I'm hoping to talk about is really a perhaps he and she relationship, because this is where I got involved in sort of a conversation. I'll go step back and tell you what that conversation is, but today is about when he does not support you, when he doesn't support your career goals, when he doesn't support your vision, when he doesn't support what you do. He just doesn't support it. So we want to talk about that, and talking about what are the traits of an unsupportive person, spouse, man that we have in our life, and what that means for us in terms of response. Does that matter? And I would say right off the bat, it does matter for most people, but we're going to have to also assess when it should really matter, when it should perhaps not matter, when we may have to compromise. Because let me just say right off the bat, the idea is not to feel, oh, he's not supporting me, therefore I'm leaving. Loneliness is not necessarily fun, and sometimes the lack of support doesn't mean our life is truly affected. We always would love support, but sometimes we can do fairly well without support. We can have our own strength, we can find other people to support us, or we can find our own strength in supporting ourselves. The idea is not to do any form of male bashing, or to just want to be lonely and alone and miserable. But we still want to talk about when he doesn't support us and what that means. Just to step back, as I was saying, I essentially was watching a video, seriously, between Gail and Oprah. And Oprah asked Gail the question that if she were married, would she be where she is? Yes, so that was obviously the specific situation for Gail. But when she asked, she said 150% no. Gail felt like her spouse did not support. And what was interesting is he is very educated, and yet Gail said that made it was difficult for him to see her succeeding. And she was even more surprised because she said it wasn't like at the time she was in a big position. She was just a reporter, a local reporter. And she said somehow she had to give up doing things at that time that could advance her career because that made her then spouse uncomfortable. And she said that's something she would have really wished that she get that support, but somehow that did not happen. And we're going to want to talk about the whatever caused this person to basically not support in a different video. But I think the point is that we really need to be surrounding ourselves with people who support us. I believe that was the idea.
Okay, now I know a lot of people would feel that those two women are perhaps advocating not being married, but I don't really know what their inner motivation is. But I do know that from that conversation, there were a lot of comments that were followed by women who essentially, for the most part, agreed that the men in their lives were not supporting them. So I did make a comment that it's really too bad when we find people in our life that are either putting us down, that are not supporting us. When that is detrimental for us, we have to have the courage to perhaps do something about it. And I did get a response of someone who says, don't generalize. I have people in my life who are very supportive. The men in my life are very, very supportive. I feel like it's always a fallacy. You make a statement recognizing that not everyone in the world is like that. You're not generalizing, and someone bring one example or 2-3 examples. There's a million examples. There's millions of people who are great, but there's also millions of people who are not. We essentially just focusing on those who are not, unfortunately, and how that can be detrimental for ourselves sometimes when we're dealing with those people. We, of course, recognizing that there are a lot of great people out there. I know I try to be as supportive as I can just by nature. I like to uplift myself, and I feel it's better for me to be uplifting others. That it's not a zero-sum game, but not everyone perhaps is able to do that. They are triggered differently when they see someone being successful or being in a position that they wish they were in, or they just feel jealous or intimidated and feel bad about themselves witnessing someone close to them achieving certain goals which somehow they're not, and they feel very bad about themselves. And when they feel bad about themselves, sometimes that's reflective upon us, that other person who is succeeding, and that can be very detrimental. This is what we're talking about, cases where, in those instances where a woman may find herself in a situation of a relationship with a boyfriend, a fiance, or a husband, and that person whose opinion they care for, whose support they could benefit from, somehow they are not getting it. Maybe it's a long preamble, okay, but I'm like really tired of people putting those type of comments like, oh, my example means like, that's the conclusion. Each person is experiencing their own truth, their own reality, their own experience. Those who are affected, okay, there's going to be perhaps 3 different ways a man is not supporting you. That's some of on the spectrum of more or less compromise, okay, to perhaps unacceptable, that you should do something about. The first one is someone who sort of really into themselves, having their own thing to deal with, and just really is not interested in what we're doing. They're just too focused on themselves. You might find yourself, especially if you're on social media, for example, and the person is not into this type of things, you can find like they're just not interested in what you're doing. They think that you just wasting your time, or you're just showing off, or they just don't take you seriously, you know. I think in cases like this, it's too bad, because what a partner should do is try to understand the platform that you are in, the potential for that platform, and recognizing that if you choose to do it, that perhaps there is something to do with it. And to the extent that they should learn about that, get information, and support you. But not everyone is going to really have this type of emotional intelligence to understand that their partner is involved in something that they don't know about, instead of right off the gut disregard it, that they should learn about it. Not everyone we can expect to do that. So in case like that, if the person just is not aware of what we're doing and is not interested in what we're doing, but leave us alone, then we just proceed and do our thing. We don't always have to have the validation of the person we love. Again, we probably would have advanced more in the platform if we did, but that's really not going to destroy a relationship. It's not going to destroy a marriage if you're doing your little thing and the person is just like ignoring you, okay? So we shouldn't always depend. So that's one case where if you're not getting active support on some activity we're doing, then perhaps it's okay. We don't have to worry about it. The second case in the middle, where the person is feeling threatened about what we're doing, right? And therefore is keeping silent because they're feeling like somehow we're no longer going to be interested in them if we pursue this thing. So they have some innate insecurity in themselves. So I feel like in a case like that, it's a little bit perhaps unfair to just feel that this person is causing us harm if they are really just being, that they don't have confidence. Perhaps in cases like this person could be helped. There could be some conversation. There could be some reassurance that whatever you're doing is perhaps for the good of the whole, and this is how you're going about it. You still respect the person, you're not flaunting your accomplishment in the person's face, and you're also trying to help the person. Perhaps in cases like this, there could be conversation, okay? And there's still hope to still not just get so upset, so uptight. You can still sort of have a hope that you can still have a relationship that's working independent of this lack of support. Perhaps the third case is with active, unsupportive person that's very nasty about it, that's discouraging you, that's putting you down the more accomplishment you have. In cases like this, it can be terrible. It can be terrible. If we stay with this person and that was a goal that was going to be very important for our life, like going to school, moving up your career, if that's something that's very, very important for you, you have to be able to assess whether you're willing to compromise. And I can guarantee you, if you compromise on your goal that's super important for your life, you would end up probably not being in that relationship ultimately. And if you give up on that dream, you would end up not having the dream and not having a relationship. Whereas if somehow you continue your dream and that doesn't work because the person is so resentful, at least you would have accomplished that dream and you could have greater and better things to do. This is a case when you have actively narcissistic person in our life who really, really resent that we have any form of advancement. They only want everything for themselves, and they are very actively hurting us, putting us down. It sounds like we should really leave, and it's still going to be difficult for some people to leave, but possibly the right decision would be to leave a situation like that. That's basically recognizing those three different ways that a partner, a spouse, a boyfriend is not supporting what we can do about it. Not just like run away and become lonely and unhappy, but really assess the relationship if it's worth keeping. Be mindful about not dumping good relationship that we have in our life because of lack of support that we should be able to get from ourselves and from other people besides our spouse. To really assess where possibly we really shouldn't compromise, just do something about it. Thanks for watching today's thoughts. I have more to say about this topic. Stay tuned. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. Until next time, bye.